Hiya, thank you for clicking on the video. My name is Showpow Guy, and I want to talk about how Yu-Gi-Oh is a time-consuming, trial and error based game. Let's look at it here. This is from the recent Slovenia WCQ regional, and there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 among the 8 decks here that ended up topping the top 8 decks. 7 of them are all different, and some of these decks have similar cards in them, whether it be tech options like Triple Tactics Talents, or in the case of Fur Hired Sprites, there'll be some runic cards in them. But in essence, we have 7 different decks over here that ended up being in the top 8 of this major tournament. Competitive players, I have all the respect in the world in, because they have to go through a long, arduous process in order to be successful in the competitive scene. So first off, in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, this also applies to even Masterduels and you competing in the locals or a major competitive tournament. First off, you have to learn what deck to play. After you learn what deck you want to go play or that you're interested in, now you have to construct your deck, which is a skill all on its own. After you construct your deck, you have to learn how to play your deck, which takes hours, sometimes days, heck, even at times weeks if your deck is very, very complicated. And then after you learn how to play your deck, you'd have to do research on other people's decks, because as you saw in the Slovenian regional here, there were 7 different decks out there that are being played, so you have to learn what each of those decks do. After you study other people's decks, now you yourself have to learn how to play other decks. You're taking days, you're taking weeks out of your time to play and learn your own deck. After that, you have to do the same thing for other people's decks, times whatever amount of decks that you're expecting to play in the next major tournament you're going to be in. After you know how to play those decks, they have to go play practice games against those same decks, which is crazy. Refresh, learn what deck you want to play. You have to then construct your deck. After you construct your deck, you have to learn how to play your deck. After you learn how to play your deck, you have to do research on other people's decks. After you do research on other people's decks, then you have to learn how to play those other people's decks. After you learn how to play those other people's decks, then you have to do practice games against those same decks multiple times over for days, weeks, months, and the more practice time you put in, the better duelist you will be. Then after you do all that, then you get to compete in a tournament, whether this could be a local or a major premier event. But in that tournament you compete in, you'll run into some random rogue deck strategy that you're not that well equipped with, and then you'll be susceptible to RNG. Like, there's a lot of luck involved in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Even top pro players will say, oh man, I got unlucky here, I ended up bricking, or my opponent just had all the outs to my deck strategies, or my opponent just happened to have like double evenly matched and they just broke my board using the most insane cards that I just happened to draw, or lost to a single Saki one of. Like, it happens. All the stuff I mentioned here can take days, can take weeks, can take months. There are some players who are not even comfortable in playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively until like 2 years. It actually does happen where people they play the game super casually for like 2 years and then they start playing competitively. Now, this doesn't apply to everybody. There are some people out there who just played Masterduel. After they played Masterduel, they practiced the game, and then within the span of like 2.5 months, 3 months, they went from playing Masterduels as a complete like scrub to somebody who's now competing at YCS events. That happens. That does happen, and everybody learns at a different pace here. But for the large majority out there, most people don't go from Masterduels to competing in major YCS events in the span of 2.5 months. That usually doesn't happen. This game involves a lot of time commitment, and you'll make a lot of errors over and over and over again. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a terrible game in terms of being convenient and accessible to the large majority of people out there who want to play this game in IRL. It really is. And the fact that you have to do all these steps here to be good competitively, and I understand that everybody wants to min-max. They want to play their Blue Eyes White Dragon Black deck, they want to play their Dark Magician deck, they want to play their hero deck and just have fun with their friends. You can definitely do that. You can definitely do that, but you trying to stay away from the competitive scene, which is almost hard to avoid because there is only like one true format to follow in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Because retro formats aren't really completely established yet. Konami are trying to make retro formats established, but right now it's not happening. They're doing the Time Wizard events, but it's not completely standardized. So we have the current advanced format to look into, and the current advanced format right now is way too difficult and way too hard for the majority of casual newbies out there to really get into. And that's an issue right now with current Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, if you're definitely this person who can take time into learn how to do all this stuff, if you're the type of person who enjoys problem solving, if you're the type of person who enjoys, deck building and trying to learn your strategy and trying to learn other people's strategies, there's a reason why in the Silicon Valley area, there are a lot of like tech nerds, including myself, who enjoy doing stuff like this. We love the problem solving aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is what makes it very fun, which is what makes it very attracting to many of us. But if you're not that type of person here, you have a huge wall to climb over in order to become good in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh in the modern era.